Before the ashen courts fell silent, before their black banners rotted into dust, and their judges became names carved into broken stone, there lived an alchemist whose work was spoken of only in lowered voices. She was not a healer. She was not a poisoner. She called herself a perfumer of consequence. Her laboratory lay beneath a city so old that even its foundations had forgotten what they once supported. Above her, markets opened and closed, bells rang, lovers argued, priests lied, and children grew into adults without ever knowing that below their streets, glass bulbs breathed with stolen last words. The alchemist believed that pain was the purest solvent. Joy, she wrote, left residue, love crystallized, mercy diluted, but suffering dissolved everything down to its truest shape. So she gathered what others discarded, burnt letters never sent, cracked mirrors from rooms of betrayal, execution ropes frayed by final struggle, teeth pulled from the mouths of liars, and tiny sealed vessels containing the last breath of oath-breakers. To others, these were relics of failure. To her, they were ingredients. The alchemist did not begin with blood, venom, or fire. She began with emotion. For decades, she studied the hidden fractures of the soul and named 13 forces that, in her doctrine, shaped every ruinous choice: shame, envy, betrayal, hunger, pride, despair, fury, longing, vanity, fear, doubt, regret, and guilt. She called them the 13 reagents. Each was harvested differently. Shame was taken from prisoners who could no longer meet their own reflection. Envy was scraped from silver coins passed between jealous hands. Betrayal was drawn from letters sealed with false affection. Fear was condensed from rooms where the condemned waited for dawn. Regret, the strongest of all, could not be taken by force. It had to be surrendered in a moment of recognition, when a person understood that no apology would return what had been lost. The alchemist captured these fragments in glass. She distilled them into liquid memory. And in the darkness beneath the city, she began to combine them. The first formula turned the drinker's skin to stone. The second caused a soldier to weep without pause for 21 days, though he claimed he felt no sorrow at all. The third made a priest speak every lie he had ever told in reverse order until his voice broke. The fourth created strength, but no will to move. The fifth sharpened the mind so violently that the subject forgot how to breathe. Each failure taught the alchemist something. Pain could be refined, guilt could be awakened, regret could be made combustible, but the body resisted consequence. It rejected too much truth at once, the way flesh rejects a blade. After the 12th failure, her assistants begged her to stop. They said no vessel could hold so many contradictions. Strength and weakness, clarity and madness, confession and power. The alchemist dismissed them. A perfect formula, she said, did not remove imperfection. It weaponized it. On the 13th attempt, the mixture changed. It did not turn red like blood. It did not turn green like venom. It became a deep, impossible blue, violet at its edges, the color of a bruise beneath the skin of the world. The liquid moved slowly inside its glass prison, heavy and restless, as though it had learned the shape of captivity and disliked it. The flask itself was made from cobalt glass thick enough to survive flame, impact, and prayer. Around its base, the alchemist carved 13 small tally marks. No one knew whether they marked experiments, or failures, or sins. When the flask was sealed, the laboratory grew silent. Not empty, silent. The kind of silence that follows a verdict. The alchemist lifted the vessel toward the lamplight and watched the liquid swallow the flame, then return it as a trembling violet glow. She named it the vessel of 13 regrets. The first subject was a condemned duelist who had murdered his own brother for inheritance and spent 7 years denying it. He drank one measured drop. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then his body failed. His knees struck the floor. His hands shook. His breath scattered into broken gasps. Witnesses thought the elixir was poison. Then the second heartbeat came. Not from his chest, from somewhere near him. Slow, patient, uninvited, the duelist rose. His eyes shone with dreadful clarity. Every lie he had used to survive himself returned at once, not as sorrow, but as force. His muscles tightened, his reflexes sharpened. His broken hand closed as though it had never been injured. He moved like a man trying to outrun memory. In the trial chamber, he defeated 3 armed guards before the flask's glow faded. Then the debt arrived. His strength collapsed. His vision blurred. His sword fell from fingers that could no longer obey him. He survived. But for the rest of his life, he counted his pulse aloud. The alchemist understood then what she had created. The draught did not grant strength. It converted consequence into motion. Those who drank from the vessel became living ledgers. Every wound they had given returned through the body as power. Every lie became cruel precision. Every betrayal hardened the will. Every regret ignited the blood. For a brief span of heartbeats, the drinker exceeded their natural limit. Vitality surged beyond reason. Fear vanished beneath violent focus. Pain became instruction. Instability became momentum. But the vessel demanded balance. When its power ended, the body remembered what it truly was. The borrowed strength inverted into frailty. Muscles trembled. Sight dimmed. Breath became shallow. Those unprepared for the reckoning often remained alive, but hollowed, as though some smaller version of themselves had been left behind. The alchemist wrote, "Power can be drawn from suffering, but only as debt." To prove her doctrine, the alchemist drank the entire flask herself. The surviving witnesses disagreed on many things. Some said she laughed, some said she wept. Some said 13 voices spoke through her at once, but all agreed on the radiance. Her body blazed with impossible vigor. She moved like a storm trapped inside skin. Stone tables shattered beneath her hands. Iron chains snapped when she touched them. Her eyes burned with the memory of every cruelty she had committed, and there were many. She seemed for a moment not redeemed by guilt, but crowned by it. Then the light collapsed. She did not die. Death would have been cleaner. Her body diminished, strength fled from her limbs. Her voice thinned to a whisper. Her bones grew fragile as ash. She remained conscious, aware, and unable to lift the cup she had once raised in triumph. Her attendants fed her by hand. Her apprentices fled. And beneath the city, the flask refilled itself drop by drop. The alchemist's method should have died with her laboratory. It did not. Fragments of her notes survived, etched into copper plates and hidden inside hollow prayer idols. Smugglers carried them across deserts. Penitent monks copied them in secret. Duelists paid fortunes for imperfect versions of the formula. The vessel began appearing in places where desperation outweighed wisdom. A gladiator drank before the final exchange and tore victory from an enemy twice his size, only to spend the rest of the week unable to stand. An assassin swallowed a stolen vial while fleeing through a burning palace and escaped over rooftops no living body should have crossed. A failed saint drank before entering a plague of shadows, believing each sip compressed sin and atonement into a single sacred act. None used it without cost. All described the same sensation after the glow faded, a second heartbeat, slow, distant, counting. In time, the vessel was no longer called a weapon. It became known as a confession you swallow. Warriors feared it, but still carried it. Zealots condemned it, but still hid it beneath their robes. Kings banned it in public and demanded it in private. The desperate learned its promise well: drink, collapse, ignite, survive. But frequent users changed. Their hands trembled between battles. Their triumphs left them suddenly weak. They began measuring their pulse, pressing 2 fingers to the throat as though counting down an invisible debt. Some became addicted not to strength, but to the moment before strength returned. That first collapse, that terrible emptiness, that instant where the body seemed ruined and the soul had no choice but to answer. The vessel did not make them fearless. It made fear useful, and that was far more dangerous. During the Siege of Mourning Gate, the vessel passed through more hands than any scholar could trace. Soldiers drank from it when the walls cracked. Captains drank from it when their banners fell. A blind archer drank a single drop and struck 13 enemies by sound alone before collapsing into silence. A young commander drank from the cobalt flask after watching her entire vanguard fall. She rose from the mud with violet fire in her veins and held the gate until dawn. Songs were written about her victory. The songs never mentioned what came after. She survived the siege, but she never again lifted a blade. Her body remained alive, yet reduced, as though the strongest part of her had been spent in advance. She later wrote that the vessel had not saved her life. It had purchased one more mourning using years she had not yet lived. After Mourning Gate, the flask vanished. Not lost, waiting. Scholars argued for centuries over the meaning of the 13th regret. The first 12 were familiar enough. Betrayal, envy, cruelty, cowardice, pride, hunger, fear, despair, vanity, doubt, longing, guilt. But the 13th was different. It was not a sin, it was not a crime. It was the understanding that power gained through suffering does not erase suffering, it only postpones it. Those who drank deeply enough eventually learned this truth. The vessel could turn weakness into force, guilt into clarity, collapse into motion. But it could not forgive, it could not heal. It could not free the drinker from what had created the strength in the first place. It remembered everything, especially what the living tried hardest to forget. Many tried to destroy the vessel. One priest cast it into a furnace blessed with 7 sacred oils. The furnace cracked. The flask remained cool. A warlord buried it beneath a battlefield, only to find it waiting in his tent 3 nights later. A queen ordered it sealed in a vault beneath a lake. Years afterward, fishermen found violet light glowing beneath the water whenever storms gathered. The vessel did not appear to those who were merely ambitious. It appeared to those at the edge of ruin, to the defeated, to the cornered, to those with one breath left and too many regrets to die cleanly. Some said the alchemist's soul lived inside the flask. Others believed the 13 reagents had become aware. The oldest surviving copper plate offered a simpler explanation. The vessel does not punish. It collects what is owed. Today, the vessel of 13 regrets is rare and feared. Not because it always kills, most survive. That is the horror of it. It leaves its drinkers alive enough to understand the price. The lesson follows wherever the cobalt glass appears. Strength purchased with one's own future becomes a habit. Borrowed vitality begins to feel like destiny. Each impossible triumph is followed by a quieter, smaller self. And yet when defeat means oblivion, when the gate is broken, when the last torch gutters, when enemies close in and no prayer answers, someone always reaches for the violet flask. They drink. For one heartbeat, they collapse. For the next, they blaze. Their blood becomes lightning. Their guilt becomes precision. Their regrets rise behind their eyes like 13 burning stars. And somewhere nearby, faint and patient, the second heartbeat begins to count.